If this is what I think it is, it's going to be really fucking funny.
So this super weird out of touch guy, Mark Dara, made a video complaining about gamers. Mark Dara, an ex-dev from BioWare.
Oh,
and
man.
what's even more hilarious is how he's getting all upset in the comments of that
He's
video,
so
which
mad.
we're definitely going to be taking a look.
This guy is writing fucking manifestos in the comments, pissed off because I reacted to his video and I disagreed with parts of his video. I didn't even disagree with the entirety of his video. I disagreed with part of it.
He's like rage responding to people. It's great entertainment for us. First, a little more info on Mark Dara. So yeah, once again, this guy is an ex-dev for BioWare, although apparently he was brought back to do some consulting on Veilguard. That's what some people are saying. If that's true, that's hilarious. What we do know, however, is that he was at the very least attempting to prop up and defend Veilguard, for example, rock, paper.
What I see in Veilguard is a game that finally bridges the gap. It bridges the gap between the employees and the unemployment line.
Shotgun here as a headline. BioWare's Mark Dara thinks Veilguard's the first Dragon Age where the combat's actually fun. What I see in Veilguard is a game that finally bridges the gap. Oh, and you know what? Here's some more information on the whole Veilguard consulting thing. Games Radar had wrote, former Dragon Age boss now consulting on the Veilguard.
Of course you're getting mad and you're trying to defend this. So I forgot all about this. I didn't even know this. Maybe I knew it. I didn't really take it seriously or didn't pay attention to it. So this guy basically was telling them that this was a good idea. And now that it's a bad idea, now he's trying to guilt trip his audience into thinking that it's good, that they released the game and it's bad, that people are happy that the studio failed. Oh, God.
No way. Says the RPG really is the best Dragon Age game that I've ever played. Yeah, so that's the sort of dude we're talking about. Subtext reading.
For sure.
Mark Dara has high praise for BioWare's latest. And apparently this dude is a BioWare veteran. How can this dude just like tarnish BioWare's legacy like this? Yeah. Oh, it's the best Dragon Age game ever. It's so great. To BioWare's credit, they did used to make good games. The frick is this guy doing?
It was a long time ago.
Oh, Veilguard's the best DA game. BioWare's better than ever. Dudes like this are just complete sellouts. Trying to sell out to the modern...
I feel like he was a consultant and he's just saying the things so it makes him look good. That's really the reason why.
It's corpos out there and all that. Yeah, it's pathetic. So that takes us to the current news with this guy.
Doesn't he look like Jake Paul in 20 years?
PC Gamer making this tweet that says,
it's
BioWare
actually
veteran
crazy.
Calls out the cruelty of fans celebrating layoffs, saying... You are crossing a line, and you're probably attacking the wrong person
50
anyway.
years.
The source for this quote is, as mentioned, a video he made, which is on his channel, and we're going to take a look at a portion of that video. I've already watched the full thing twice myself, and I'm just going to summarize the great majority of the video, which is simply that the middle part of the video, he's essentially just making excuses for bad game devs, and the latter part of the video, he's essentially trying to dictate who gamers are.
I love how, like, this is like what I think is so fucking annoying. Is that these people, they create these, they create this apparatus where nothing they do can ever be wrong because there's so many people that are responsible for each individual thing that accountability is displaced between so many sources that there can never be any fault by anybody. It's so exhausting. Yeah, they're muddying the waters. Exactly, bro. Like, they're roaches.
Allowed to criticize and who they're not allowed to criticize. There's also a prevalent recurring theme in his video, which is he doesn't actually use the word criticize. He doesn't want to admit that gamers have fair critiques for these corporations and these devs. No, instead he phrases it specifically as gamers attacking and complaining. And I don't think that's...
It's also like, I mean, everybody agrees. Like, let's just get this out of the way. Everybody agrees that if you don't like a voice actor for a certain game or whatever, if you're making personal attacks to them and you're making personal threats, like, everybody agrees this is bad. No, but there's no like hidden agenda here of people that think this is a good thing. It's not real. You're fighting. You're jousting with windmills here. You're fighting ghosts. Like, yeah, there's like 5 people on Twitter that think this, but it's not the majority of people. 99% of people don't think this.
That's coincidence. I think there's like one of two things going on here. Either he's intentionally phrasing it that way, or he's subconsciously phrasing it that way. Either thing leading to the conclusion that he clearly doesn't think gamers are really valid to criticize these corpos, and he's just trying to play cover for them. But yeah, that's not going well because gamers are seeing right through his nonsense and calling him out, which, as mentioned, he's getting upset about in his own comment section.
Yeah.
All that said, now I'm going to play a portion of his video.
So the reason why he's getting defensive in his comment section is because I reacted to his video and I watched it. That's the reason why he's getting defensive, because he wasn't doing that previously. He was only doing that because once I watched it and everything like that, I said, Grandmaster in this game? Congrats, dude. Holy fuck. Nice. And yeah, that's what I think. He's salty? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because while I could summarize this part too, it's just especially amusing what he says here, so enjoy.
Did you read the title? Did it say something like, your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty?
Oh.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. The fact that you bought a game that you didn't like doesn't give you the right to be cruel or unkind to the people that developed that game. Now, I'm going to be clear about something.
Well, the reason why it doesn't give you the right is because you already had it. Everybody has the right to say whatever the fuck they want. It's not against the law. You could have said that anyway.
I'm not saying that you have to like the thing you bought. I'm not saying even that you aren't allowed to complain about the thing you bought.
Yeah.
You can have whatever opinion that
you're right, not in Germany.
That you feel like
True.
Towards a game. Even if that opinion is stupid and wrong, you are entitled to that opinion. And to some degree, you're entitled to express that opinion to the corporation, to the video game studio that created this game that you bought. You paid 70 of your own dollars for this game, and it disappointed you, and you're angry about that. That is fine. You are entitled to be angry about it, and you're entitled to express that anger in certain channels. If you are mad at that Ubisoft game, be mad at Ubisoft. Express your anger to Ubisoft or to the studio that made the game. But you cross a line when you start being cruel about it. So why am I saying you don't get to be cruel because you...
Why are you not defining what that word means? You're not defining the word. The problem is, like, you're using an emotionally charged word without creating a distinction, because there's a lot of people that view constructive criticism, and cruelty that are all on the spectrum. So, like, I think that you can easily see personal attacks, insults at a person's appearance, stuff like that. This is obviously all bad, right? But where does that line get drawn? Well, you're not creating the line, and so how can anybody know what you mean?
Spent $70. Let's walk through it. One,
he's creating rhetoric.
You shouldn't be cruel at all. What are you doing? It's a video game. You don't need to go out of your way to cause harm to other people because of a video game that you don't like.
Okay, so yeah,
Here we go.
Cruel. He goes off about being cruel and never really defines what he means by.
So does he think that, like, if so somebody makes a video game that's not fun, and then a player beats up the developer in real life, how many people do you think really support that? Basically fucking nobody. Nobody supports, like, this is not real. Like, it's total fucking bullshit.
Rule. Chances are that's something he would use to fit his own meaning whenever it's convenient for him to defend corpos. And okay, here's a question, bruh. Why do these giant corporations get to be cruel to gamers? Trying to take our money, charge us $70 for their AAA slop.
Yeah, I would say that's a good argument. Yeah, I think it's a little bit cruel when you make a video game and you charge $70 for it and it's bad.
Sometimes promising features that are not even there, and releasing games that are far too buggy than they should be at release. Sometimes essentially using players as their own beta testers without properly disclosing that that's even what they're doing. It's an extremely shady and corrupt industry. You don't see this guy advocating for gamers to get refunds on these slop games. No, instead he's just trying to dictate how gamers are allowed to respond when these corporations try and swindle people out of their money. And of course I understand that they're not literally forcing someone to buy their game. They don't, like, threaten them to buy the game or else. But as mentioned, a lot of the time these corporations are very dishonest in how they're presenting their game, as if it's a complete product, when a lot of the time these AAA games really aren't.
If you feel like you need to focus it down onto an actual human being, I mean, that's really sad. I'm sorry. That's very sad. And hopefully you can grow beyond that. But I will give you a couple of outlets.
I think that it makes sense when you focus on a human being whenever a specific person is saying things that are problematic, like that avowed art director, for example. Like, that makes sense. Now, whenever you're looking at harassing a voice actor for some character because you don't like what the character's doing in the game, like, this is mental institution behavior, absolutely. But that's not the majority, and it's actually a small minority. It's, again, like, I mean, like, what are we doing here? Like, it's just, like, such a crazy thing to even say. This guy's an example of a concern troll? No, what he's doing is he's trying to... So he put his weight behind a game that was received very badly, and now he's trying to play defense for it because he was aligned with it, and it makes him look bad. That's what's really happening here. That's what I think is happening here.
Need to complain at a human being. I'm going to say you don't get to go lower than the first person in the credits.
Yes, the complaining police over here. Oh, you don't get to do this. You can only do that. And an important thing to take note of is how he's not providing any examples. Like, what is he even specifically talking about here? I don't generally see gamers going after, like, specific people who worked on a game unless those people went out of their way to attack gamers first. For example,
exactly. Yeah, nobody's going and just like finding random devs and doing that. And if they are, they're assholes and they're pieces of shit. Yeah, that's obviously wrong.
Have seen devs at certain companies, certain devs, literally making inflammatory statements that target gamers with hostility, in which case, obviously, the gamers that see that may very well respond to it, and they're allowed to do that. Or in other circumstances, when we've seen devs, for example, some of the Veilguard devs, who very obviously put in like self-insert slop into the game, which we also directly see negatively impacted the game. Yeah, people are allowed to criticize those choices and the people who made them. Just because you're a game dev doesn't mean you're free from criticism. And you can't criticize.
Well, there's always this emotional manipulation where it's like, and anybody who's like part of celebrity culture does this. Like, content creators do this as well. It's like they always want you to feel sorry for them, or like, oh, this is so sad, it's happening to me, like I'm getting bullied, like people don't like me, etc. It's so exhausting to me. Like, if you put out a stream, if you put out videos and people don't like the videos, that's what happens, right? That's life. If you go into the public space and then people say, we don't like what you're doing, then get the fuck out of the public space. That's the way the world works. So I don't understand how this is, it's happening. You can also pivot your content. Yeah, you could just make different content as well. And so you have this emotional manipulation that happens with streamers doing this, celebrities do this, and especially game devs do this, where they're trying to like paint themselves out as like victims, when the reality is that game development is just like a lot of other industries as well, where you have people that get fired regularly. Like, this is what happens in tech as a macro thing in general. But we're supposed to feel uniquely, sorry for a game developer when something like this happens. Whereas if you make any product and the product doesn't sell, it doesn't make money, you're out of a job. That's the way the world works. I used to think Asmon had taste in games. Listen, guys, the avowed thing, I get it. Hey. It is what it is. All right? It is what it is. Guys, I'm getting hate. Look at this. I'm being bullied. This isn't fair. Look at this. This is like, I'm getting attacked in my own stream now. Like, I can't even stream anymore without somebody trying to attack me and bully me and say I'm wrong. This isn't fair, guys. Can anybody donate to make me feel better?
You can only criticize the first name in the credits.
Oh, Be a human being. Have some empathy, and stop being cruel. Stop throwing a party because a bunch of people lost their jobs, because you don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're mad at. People deserve some grace. people deserve some empathy from you. And if you can't provide that, then stay off the internet completely.
Yeah, the lack of self-awareness with this guy, man, is pretty astonishing.
It's insane.
Telling us to stay off the internet, that's what he should be doing, really. Like, he's just making terrible points and making himself look like a fool. And again, like I mentioned multiple times, it only gets worse in his own comment section. We're almost there, by the way.
Dude,
and there's two more points I'll bring up really quick. It shouldn't be surprising when people celebrate some of these companies going through layoffs after these companies have been very predatory towards gamers, and or they have people working at those companies that have made public statements showing hostility to gamers.
And also, they make racist public statements and they don't get fired. That's the big difference, is that nobody would hold it against the company if the company did like somebody said it and the company was like, oh yeah, we don't support that, we're going to get rid of this guy, right? But they don't. They defend it, and it's because they agree with it. That's the reason.
Literally, you can argue that with these companies going through layoffs, the industry is actually healing. The final point is that it comes off really hollow when he's pretending to care about people that get laid off. He's unwilling to criticize the devs who are factually bringing these studios down, which very well may result in a game underperforming and then everyone getting laid off. And I'm using everyone a bit facetiously here, but you know, a massive number of people. If he really didn't want layoffs to happen, then he shouldn't be upset when gamers find people responsible for dragging these games down and then criticizing the bad work that they do. So that bad work can directly lead to the game underperforming and then surprise layoffs. But nah.
If something's bad, it's bad. Like, that's it. Like, this is the thing. This is one of the reasons why, like, I never really relied a lot on, like, parasocials. And, like, obviously every streamer has parasocials that watch, but I've tried to put a pretty big barrier between, like, me and a lot of my viewers. And what I mean by that is I try to avoid having any sort of, like, circumstance where, like, my viewers are... let me think of a good way to say this. Like, where, like, I want people to, like, really feel sorry for me, or I try to bridge the gap between, like, you guys watching for content and for entertainment into you watching in order to, like me or be like a real life friend simulator. Because I feel like there's a lot of streams that do this as well. And, like, this is why I have a lot of opinions about it, because I feel like there's a lot of parallels to this with, like, streaming and content creation. Whereas, like, from my perspective, I try to come on every day and be entertaining and not just be like, oh yeah, people like watching the stream because they like being around you. That's nice, right? And it's good to have that type of charisma. But I try to go a step farther and actually be entertaining and make a conscious effort to engage people and have it not just be that surface level weird interaction. Yeah, like I'm not trying to do a boyfriend, best friend, girlfriend experience type thing. Right? That's it. And Beholden? Yeah, exactly, right? You literally tweeted asking for donations. Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Instead, he is ardently defending these people for some reason. Anyways, let me know what you think about that stuff. Now, on to the comments. A top comment reads, "A simple bill of $70 gives me the right to critique a product." And Mark responds with this really weird comment that says, "Watch the video, dislike something, express that dislike to the studio, but why are you crawling into someone's personal social media feed? If you need a human, look at the first few names in the credits." We can then see a user questioning how Mark knows that person is even doing.
How do you even know that the first few names in the credits are the ones that are responsible either? In a lot of cases, the game director is even somebody who's beholden, like, they're not at the top of the company either. Like, there's probably 3 people that are above, or probably 2 people that are above them. There's the CEO, and then there's the board of directors, if it's a publicly traded company, that are really telling the CEO what to do. So that doesn't even make sense.
What he's accusing him of, to which someone else points out that he really doesn't. Yeah. As it turns out, that comment that Mark left is one that he's been copy-pasting all over the comment section. I find this particularly amusing because he tries to say to act like a human being in his video, but he comes off like some kind of robot. Like, it comes off very fake. And then he's just copy-pasting.
Of course it's a robot, because he's saying the same thing like a robot would.
Slop in the comment section. I think this guy should take his own advice. Like, bro, try and act like a human instead of a bot. Oh, look, here's a comment he left that's actually not just a copy paste. This user says, "You have never once called out your colleagues for their cruelty." And Mark,
exactly. See, this is why people don't believe this, and this is why they hate people like this. Is because, like, you can have these different these different developers and these people that work in the games industry that constantly non-fucking stop make negative comments, derogatory comments towards either content creators, gamers as a whole, or groups of people, and they never get called out by their coworkers or even by other people in the industry. And this is a massive issue. Like, for example, in streaming, if somebody says something bad, a lot of people will call it out and say, hey, this is bad. In a lot of other industries, it's the exact same thing. But the problem is that if you don't hold your own people accountable, then how can you expect to hold other people accountable? It's not fair. So how can anybody respect this mindset if you're not even doing it yourself? This is what I was saying before about the selective performative empathy. This is exactly it right here. What about the very first Twitch chatter you had? What was his accountability for the awful thing he said and left? I stopped streaming. I was done. Yeah, that's it. Checks and balances with your friends. Streamers do that. Also waiting on future collabs. It's selective. Yeah, of course it is going to be selective. And that's why I try to be fair with everybody and with people that, and I think if Mark would just come out and say, hey, professionally, I don't want to say that because I'm in the industry and it would make me look bad professionally. That would be fine for him to say that. But for you to just discount this entirely and not even call it out, I don't think that's really the case. And also, if you're in an industry that calling out a person who is saying things that are racist, inflammatory, or problematic, if this will hurt you in that industry, don't expect other people to have respect for the industry.
Mark says, nope. Yeah, it's not a copy paste, but it's still definitely not helping his case.
Yep.
This user says, studios attack the gamers. Gamers retaliate. Studios shocked Pikachu face. And Mark Dara
cop Control C, Control V.
is back with his copy paste nonsense. We can see another example of that right here, where this person says, quote unquote, don't ask questions, just consume product and wait for next product. And there's Mark's typical copy-paste response. There's plenty more examples of him doing...
Well, this is the exact issue he's kind of saying, is that people are criticizing his approach to the video, and they're talking about a meta-level issue with his video, and he's only talking about what the video is talking about and trying to reassert the same point of view. So I think this is actually a really good example of how this happens.
But I'm sure you get the point. Interestingly enough, this comment reads, you know what, credit where credit's due. The comment section is not turned off. And Mark says, not yet.
Not yet.
All this goes back to what I said earlier about how I don't think this guy genuinely does care about the industry. He seems intent on defending certain people.
Well, he cares about people in the industry. Like, he probably has friends or people that he's, close with or something like that, and he cares about them, and so he's trying to defend them, and he's trying to defend retroactively his own bad decisions. That's what's going on. Is like he supported and consulted and promoted a game that was problematic and bad, and instead of, like, whenever I said Avowed, like, I liked Avowed, I thought it was pretty decent, and then other people said, no, it's really bad. Instead of just saying, wow, yeah, I can see where you guys are coming from, instead of that, he's doubling down and, basically saying that everybody else is shitty.
From criticism,
you had a wrong
I think
opinion.
We all know that certain people probably are.
No, and also, like, this is my opinion about Avowed. After watching these comparisons, it is shocking to me how stark the comparison is between games that came out over 10 years ago and Avowed. And after seeing it, it does kind of make me enjoy the game less, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I did enjoy playing the game and I had fun playing the game. Now, and this is what I've always said, if you want to be a dick eater, eat as many dicks as you want, just don't ever tell me it's a hot dog. That's fine. And that was the correction. I didn't correct it. I'm not correcting and saying that I'm not a dick eater. I'm correcting and I'm saying I'm not a hot dog eater. Does that make sense? Yeah, of course it does.
Because even just taking a look at his video and his actions in the comment section, he's only giving gamers even more reasons to despise the AAA industry.
Just make you gay.
Lastly, let's take a look at this exchange where a user says, I guess devs can be cruel for years, and the second it happens back to them, the gamers are the bad guys, and the devs are all of a sudden the victim. Right. Mark says, ideally we would see decorum from everyone. But people point out how he doesn't seem to really stand by that at all.
Yeah, because you're not calling them out. Whenever you only call out one group of people, then everybody thinks that you're biased. And I think that, like, I can even use myself as an example for that. Now, it's been no surprise that I've covered a lot more political topics recently, and in the process of doing that, I've shared a lot of political opinions. Now, I agree with what I'd say, like, 80 to 90% of Trump is doing. Like, I'm very positive towards, like, the actions he's taken. I think that, like, you know, illegal immigration, the, like, trans sports thing, there's a lot of things that I tremendously agree with and I'm very positive about. But the difference is that people criticize me and they say that, oh, well, but you didn't say this about this thing, or you didn't talk about this thing or that thing or whatever. But the difference between me and Mark is that when somebody responds to me when they say that, I can play them a clip of me saying that. Mark doesn't have any of those clips because he's providing one-sided coverage and he's being biased. That's the reason why. So, like, for me, I do provide primarily positive coverage because I agree primarily positively with it. But with him, it's that he's providing one-sided coverage and he's overlooking obvious problems.
The next response saying, that was of no priority to you in this video. And indeed, he never mentioned that at all. Instead, he was trying to frame all the critiques from gamers as attacks and unjust complaining, and mentioning nothing of the awful behavior we've seen from numerous devs in the industry. The next response reads, people didn't when it was one-sided for the last decade. Too late to do a 180 and say people should now, when the other side has the upper hand. Western AAA games have been terrible for value for the longest time, and there's no reason to buy them over indie or Eastern developed games. And then this response says, so where's your video about game dev cruelty, Mark? Where's your article about that? What a snake. It's much more cruel to be an executive producer who pushes for or allows all the elements that were guaranteed to get everyone working under you laid off. Hey, this
is actually a really good point. It's the selfishness of empathy and the selfishness of indulgence at a leadership level. And it's something that needs to be discussed a lot more. And I wish it was, but unfortunately it's not. So one of the things that happens a lot is that a lot of people that are in leadership roles, what they end up doing is they defend and they allow things that are problematic because they think that it's for the better good, right? They're doing the right thing. And sometimes when you do the right thing, you end up betraying the people that put their confidence in you in the first place. And so I see a lot of cases where people who have a leadership position put their own morals and their own virtue signaling ahead of the best interests of the people that have put their trust in them. And I think it's one of the biggest types of betrayals that a person in a leadership position can have. And I think it happens a lot with video games. It happens with movies. And I think it happens with everything, right? Doing the right thing. Like, yeah, well, I'm going to do the right thing. And sometimes doing the, quote, right thing ends up hurting the people that trusted you. And I understand that, like, this is sometimes a trolley problem, but a good leader knows which lever to pull. And that's it. And sometimes you have to pull a lever. And the issue is that a lot of people are unwilling to do that, and their unwillingness to do that makes them weak leaders.
Similar to what I mentioned earlier, and how it comes off like Mark is very disingenuous.
Selfish.
But continuing, the user says, the team's well-being was your responsibility as far as game production goes. Unless you're telling me that EA was pushing all those undesirable elements, and you'd like to tell us that.
He never responded.
But you probably weren't even one to rein your more belligerent coworkers in, let alone keep their sales-killing agendas out of the product. You know what? I'll read one more comment right here. This one that says, realistically, we see attacks from devs. You need to get comfortable with the fact that you're not a victim. All in all, I think the people in the responses did a great job.
Developers can be victims in a lot of cases, and I would stand and support them whenever they are. But being disagreed with publicly after making public statements is not being a victim. The only victim the only person who's victimizing you is yourself. You're a victim of your own stupidity and your own narcissism to think that you can make comments in a public space and not have other people respond and disagree with them.
Of responding to Mark and pointing out the issues with the pathetic arguments that he attempted to make. Once again, let me know what you think about all of this stuff in the comments here. And if you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate ya. Have a great weekend ahead, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yep. I'm so glad to see this happen. I'm so glad to see people calling this out. Self-delusion morals. What's an example of a dev being a victim? An example of a dev being a victim.
So this super
I don't know. I'd really have to think about it. Like, fuck. I think that Daniel Vara, the guy for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, got attacked way too much in a case where it didn't really make sense. And I think, yeah, the Arthur, yeah, Andy and Laylee, I think that's another one, Soul Ash 2 developer as well. I think basically the case where a developer is a victim. So basically, if you ever threaten a person with physical violence or with a death threat or anything even remotely close to that, then they are a victim. That's basically the way that I feel about it at like a macro level. So like if this happens to a developer, then they are a victim. And even if a developer posts something that's problematic or disagreeable, I think they're still a victim if that happens. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy devs caught a lot of hate. Yeah, exactly. I think what works most against this dev is the language they use. I'm sick and fucking tired of being talked to by high school counselors. Well, I mean, that's basically the level of morality and thinking that they have. Is it's high school counselor level beliefs. That's it.